8 hours in bed is not enough. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about sleep gains, everything you need to know about them, how you can optimize for them, and the effects of them in terms of muscle gain and your performance in the gym. We all know that when it comes to sleep, it replenishes our systems, not just in lifting sense, but like replenishing your brain, your bodily systems, keeping everything intact, recovering. And when it comes to lifting in the gym, in the deepest part of the sleep is where your body produces the growth hormone, which builds the muscle, repairs the micro tears. So by prioritizing your sleep, you're able to recover and build muscle much faster and also reduce all the stress. Well, this will help you to lift much heavier. And also by keeping cortisol and stress hormones low, you won't constantly feel hungry, you'll feel satiated, more energetic, your workouts will be better, you'll be better. A lot of videos on the internet talk about the importance of sleep, and I don't want to go too much into that because you've probably heard of them, and I've also mentioned a couple. But the problem is a lot of people have very poor sleep hygiene, and this is why when they're in bed for 8 hours, they're not really sleeping 8 hours, probably not even sleeping 7 hours, more like 6 hours to 6 hours 30 at max. In order to avoid that problem, the optimizations I'm going to give to you, yes, the cure. Those optimizations are going to significantly reduce the amount of time you spend awake. So that way, if you're in bed for 9 hours, you won't be sleeping for 8 hours or 7 hours 37. You're most likely going to get the full 8 hours 30, 8 hours 45. If you're in bed for 8 hours, then you'll get closer to 7 hours 45 minutes. By reducing the time you stay awake, you can sleep for longer, recover quicker, build muscle quicker. So let me tell you a story. Today is the last day of summer break, and during the summer, everyone knows, late nights, the sun doesn't set till late, you have a lot of caffeine, other drinks, food. Your sleep is very unpredictable, and because of that, the outside environment makes it very hard for you to have good sleep hygiene. So this messed up my sleep and my circadian rhythm. And in order to solve this problem, I thought by being in bed for 9 hours or 10 hours would offset that problem. So even though I'm having poor sleep, by sleeping longer, I would be able to offset that problem. Recently, I've also been using a tracker that I got. And only after using the tracker, I understood the difference between the types of sleep. The different stages of sleep are all different, and each one holds its own priority. On the days which I didn't practice good sleep hygiene, a lot of the sleep that I was getting out of the 9 hours in bed, I'd be wasting 2 hours just awake, tussling and moving around. And out of those 7 hours that I slept, majority was just light sleeping. It wasn't even deep sleeping which recovered me, or REM sleep. In order to prevent majority of your sleep being light, I searched up the different ways where you can promote much deeper sleeping regardless what environment you're in and how difficult it is. Now the optimizations I'm going to list are in order from most known to least known, but each one holds its own importance. The first one being caffeine. The way caffeine keeps you awake and all its other effects and symptoms as well, like alertness, is by blocking the adenosine receptors. And now, even though that isn't relevant for you, I just wanted to let you know how caffeine works. Now, the most common way most people will be drinking caffeine, especially gym bros, is going to be coffee and tea. Even though we do drink pre-workouts and energy drinks, those aren't as frequent and definitely not multiple times a day. If anything, it would just be the coffees and the teas. But regardless, whichever beverage you drink, you're still going to get caffeine, and that's the same type of caffeine. Caffeine has a half-life of 5 hours. And what this means is, on average, when you have a coffee or a pre-workout, each scoop of pre-workout, a shot of coffee, has a certain amount of caffeine in it. So let's just say the pre-workout scoop that you had has 200 milligrams of caffeine. Now, a half-life means how long it takes for that 200 milligrams to become half. So metabolize through your body and become half, so become 100 milligrams. And that's what they measure. Knowing that caffeine has a half-life of 5 hours, that's pretty long. If you were to have a coffee in the afternoon, for example, you'd probably be able to go through 2 half-lives before it reached your bedtime. And any later, you'd probably only go through 1 or 0. And earlier in the morning, then you would be able to go 3. That's why a lot of people promote having coffee early in the day, that way you can go through more half-lives, and the amount of caffeine that will be in your body by the time it comes to your bedtime will be much little. So the best way to do this is by roughly estimating the amount of caffeine that you have in your body when it comes to your bedtime. So taking our previous example, we've got the gym bro who's going for the PR and his workout's at 8 a.m. today. He had a scoop of pre which had 200 milligrams of caffeine, and he also goes to bed at 11 o'clock. So from 8 to 11, that's 15 hours. And if we do 15 divided by 5, that's 3 half-lives. So we've got 200 milligrams. After 5 hours, it goes to 100 milligrams. After another 5 hours, it goes to 50. And after the final half-life, it goes to 25. So when it comes to 11 p.m. when he's in bed, ready to sleep, he has 25 milligrams of caffeine in his body. And usually this is a very little amount, so it shouldn't disturb your sleep. But it's always good to be aware of how much caffeine you had throughout the day. So the next day when you do wake up and you feel like, oh, I didn't sleep as well, then you know that even 25 milligrams of caffeine is too much and that you're too sensitive to it. The next time you're going to have a coffee, be aware that whatever you're having, calculate the half-lives in advance. So that way you can ensure you're only going to have less than 25 milligrams by the time you reach bed. And the opposite would be true if you slept perfectly. So even after the 3 half-lives, there was 25 milligrams and you slept like a baby. In that case, you can take a second scoop of pre, which I wouldn't recommend, but you can have pre-workout later in the day. So if you have an evening session, you might want to test it out then, or in the afternoon, or have a second coffee. Because you're able to tolerate more caffeine and still be able to sleep, you're very lucky. And let's say after doing a couple tests, you can only take on 75 milligrams and any more will disturb your sleep. So now that you know your upper limit, you're able to dose caffeine without worrying about disturbing your sleep. The second thing is blue light. So when you're in the dark, your body promotes melatonin, which helps regulate or tells your body that you need to go to bed. But when it is nighttime and your body is ready to produce the melatonin and you use screens, the light that emits from the screens, the blue light, interferes with melatonin production. And long story short, this means that you're not going to be able to produce melatonin and not fall asleep. The screens will keep you awake. Stop being an addict and go off your screens for at least 1 hour before your bedtime. But if you still need to use it in that 1 hour period, use a blue light filter. But the best way to do this would be putting all screens outside your bedroom an hour before you sleep and doing some form of light activity such as reading a book. Simply having the urge to get out of your bed, open the door, walk all the way to get your phone is such a hassle that your body doesn't really want to do it. The third thing is circadian rhythm. You want to be waking up and sleeping at the same time all throughout the week, regardless whether it's the weekend or the weekday. By doing that, you'll set not only a routine, but your body knows when it should wake itself up and when it should go to bed. And this way it can regulate its hormones and everything. And if you do this repeated number of times, you'll soon realize that sometimes you don't even need an alarm to wake up. Your body naturally wakes up and it's like 1 minute remaining to your alarm rings. That's when you've ingrained in the habit. The 3-hour shutdown. So exercise is very important, but that's not an issue for any gym bro because they're always in the gym working out. If not in the gym, they'll be sleeping or eating protein or thinking about the gym. But when you do work out, after the workout throughout the day, you'll slightly feel tired, you'll be fatigued. And this signals to your body at the end of the day, we need to go to bed, which does two things: improves the sleep quality and also improves the quantity of your sleep, which are two good things. But you may have realized after a workout, you're very awake. No one works out and goes straight to sleep. Usually you're very vigilant, you're aware, you're awake, you're energetic after a workout. And so if you work out too late or too close to your bedtime, then you may feel those energetic effects even when you're meant to be falling asleep. Now, I must say that some people in the opposite field, like they need to work out to fall asleep, but that's like a different breed and you're probably not one of those. For majority of people, what I would say is don't do any strenuous activity, any activity that makes you sweat or work out in the gym 3 hours before you sleep. That way there's a cool down period for your body, but you can still work out earlier in the day to enjoy the sleep benefits. Following on with physical activity, you also need to do some mental activity. So just as you're squatting, you're benching, deadlifting, doing whatever in the gym, you also need to be doing some mental reps or mental work, whether that be studying or working or reading or some form of mental work. That way your brain also feels tired by the end of the day And this also helps signal to your body that you need to go to bed. The next thing is spending 30 minutes of your day in daylight. When the UV rays aren't that high and it's healthy to go outside to enjoy the sun, make sure you're spending at least 30 minutes. This way, you're also helping your circadian rhythm. You're telling your brain and your body that right now it's daylight, so there's no need to produce melatonin. And that way it will be able to produce melatonin later on in the day when it is nighttime. Once again, reinforcing that cycle and helping you build that habit of waking up without an alarm. Also, watch out for your food and water intake, because your water turnover and digesting food, two processes that your body needs to do. If you eat or drink too close to your bedtime, you might find yourself awake because your body's still digesting the food. But if you do eat earlier, you may be like me and feel hungry as it gets close to your bedtime. So in order to feel full, what I do is include a lot of fiber and good fats into my final meal. That way it slows down the rate of digestion. Honestly, you can do a lot of things. For example, taking Greek yogurt, and since yogurt has casein protein, it's very slow digesting. So that keeps you full throughout the night. You can also add a scoop of whey to that. So Greek yogurt, whey almost tastes like ice cream even though it isn't. 1 second of ice cream and then you're back to reality. You can sprinkle some nuts on top, and for the fiber or something, you could have popcorn as well because it's so voluminous, you feel more full. It's all up to you, whatever you want to do. Ideally, you want to eat much earlier, at least 2 to 3 hours before you're about to sleep. But if you do feel hungry, choosing fibrous and fat-filled options are two things you could do. The next tip is the night routine. It's almost like a wind down. No doubt we're working out, we're doing mental work, we're producing the melatonin at the right time, and all of that is biochemically happening within our body. But us physically telling our body that we need to go to sleep, and the best way to do this is having a night routine, which you execute every day. And as long as that night routine avoids screens, isn't strenuous, so like no physical activity, mine is as simple as doing my skincare, stretching, and then reading. And because I do this every day, my body knows when I do this in this order, it's time to get ready for bed and about to sleep. Finally, when it comes to your room, avoiding too much noise, unless you're one of those people who uses Headspace or New Calm, making sure you get the right delta waves and biohacking to get the right sleep and whatever you guys use. But for the most people, if you don't use any sound, you're probably gonna sleep better. The same thing applies for light. Too harsh light, that's why you can't sleep in airport. As long the darker the room is, the more likely you're going to be able to sleep for longer and deeper and better quality because you're able to produce more melatonin. And finally, when it comes to room temperature, aiming for around 16 to 19 degrees Celsius is probably most optimal for best sleep. And that's going to conclude the video. May the gains be with you, and see you in the next one.